G'day, guys. Welcome to Superchargers. I'm Daniel Thomas, and my guest on this episode is author Alice Readman. Alice has written the memoir, I Am Alice, Break Up, Break Down, Break Through, which shares the story of her personal transformation, and she now finds herself residing in Bali, Indonesia. Enjoy this one, guys. Let's get into it. You were the bass player in your tours. I'm curious about the band. How did that inform you as an artist, and what was that experience like for you in the 90s?
Well, at the time, I was at university actually. I went to university late to do art history and film studies. And my boyfriend at the time had been in many bands and they could never keep bass players. So basically, they said, Right, Alice, we're teaching you how to play bass. And I was like, Okay, because I was always driving them because they didn't have cars. So I was always driving them to gigs. I was always there supporting them. So they said, Right, we're going to teach you how to play bass. So it wasn't in the Auteurs, it was another band called The Servants that I started to learn guitar, bass guitar. And actually, we recorded an album. I recorded an album with them, learning bass literally within months. We went and recorded an album straight, no drop ins really, just completely straight in a studio time for like, I don't know, 5 days or something ridiculous like that. And yeah, and then my boyfriend had written lots of songs because he'd been writing and playing guitar and many instruments for many years. And he's like, Right, I've got my own songs now. I want to start doing gigs. You're going to be my bass player. So then I moved into his band. And basically, yeah, we started doing gigs in London in all the sort of pubs and things. And we got some good reviews with Enemy and that kind of thing. And then, yeah, and then basically Suede, you've probably heard of Suede.
Mm-hmm.
They saw us and wanted us to go on tour with them. So we went on tour with Suede for I don't know, 3 or 4, the early sort of touring around the UK. And yeah, we started doing that. So I literally left university, didn't do my graduation, and went on tour with Suede. So 7 years later, we did 4 albums and toured the world. And yeah,
That's
that was
crazy.
part of my life.
That's crazy. I love these band stories, how different they are, and these kind of sliding doors moments with bands, because I took a band to London and it was a complete opposite experience. Like that would have been our dream, to tour with Sway. Our experience was a bit different, but I think there's just so much call it luck involved. So the fact those guys saw you and took their under their wing. um how was the I find band relationships fascinating, and how you hold it together on tour in like buses, and you're at a sound check and you're waiting, you've got 8 hours to wait, and you kind of still haven't slept from the night before. It can be a pretty intense and sometimes call it hostile environment, particularly for creatives. How did you find that touring
Yeah.
experience?
I mean, when you first start touring, you're staying in really awful places, guest houses, and you've got your lowest of the bill and all of that. And so yeah, and it's also quite cold in the UK the further you go up, so your hands get cramp and those kind of things. But I mean, Suede were lovely to us,
Mm.
and so it was fun. It was an adventure. And funny enough, I've actually come back to music all these years later since I've been living in Bali. I came to sound through sound healing and the gong and playing crystal bowls and all of this. And recently I started learning acoustic guitar and written my first song. So it's amazing how sound, I thought I got away from music, but obviously I loved it. And now I've come back to it in a completely different way. So yeah, I do appreciate that. I mean, I don't think I want to go on stage again. I'm not really wanting to do that kind of thing. But I definitely, yeah, it's amazing when you go, as we're going to be talking about transformation and personal transformation, how actually it really opens you up to your unique gifts that you didn't know you had.
Mm.
And so yeah, writing the book and doing lots of different things I would never imagine, never mind living here in Bali for the last 7 years. So life changes and you change with it and go on a different adventure.
Yeah, music's an awesome thing when you have that for life. I'm the same. I just After the whole band thing, I just jam with my son now, and it's a really awesome and different experience to share that with him. And that's all I'm really interested in now is like, as you say, rather than things blowing up on stage and so on. But this music, initial music journey was all a precursor to some of the bigger things that took you on a different path. Is that correct? Which
Well,
informed your
yeah.
book?
It informed my book a little,
Hmm.
but I had a spiritual awakening in 2014. But I must say, touring with the band, it really does stretch your mind and your physical resilience, because it is quite grueling going on tour and standing up on stage at 10 o'clock at night every night, you know. Although our tours weren't too big, um, you know, it does really wear you out and it does stretch you mentally. And you know, my boyfriend at the time, Luke Haynes, he was quite, you know, he's obviously very creative, and mentally he found it very difficult to go on tour. Whereas for me, you know, I have a sort of balanced left right brain, so I can do practical things and I can do creative things. And so, you know, although I did have nervous exhaustion when we went to Japan, and I did come back and had to rest for weeks. But yeah, it really is quite a difficult, you know, it's quite a stressful job to do. um, you know, obviously there's lots of benefits of traveling around the world, but getting on lots of flights when it's your job is different when you're going on holiday, you know. So yeah, so it does fatigue you. And yeah, but I mean, obviously you get lots of time off to relax. But you know, there's always that kind of like, oh, what's the next single? How's it going to go? And what are the reviews going to be like? And blah blah blah, you know, and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, and the record
That's
company has expectations, and you know, so you go on TV. I mean, it's kind of really shook me out of my comfort zone.
mm.
And I think back, I think I was so young, and I just thought, okay, this is what I do now. I just do it, you know. And I was lucky that performing for me, you know, was a little bit nerve-wracking, because that's normal and you should be like that. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll play a bad gig. But you know, I wasn't sort of too, I don't know, I wasn't that creative that I was like, oh, I can't do that. Or, you know what I mean? Some people that go on stage really have a difficult time of doing it, and suffer because of that, for their health, their mental health. And, you know, going on tour, people drink every night. You have a rider of drink and, you know, all of this kind of thing that goes with it. So I think as a band, we were very lucky. I mean, a lot of people get involved with stuff that, you know, sends them down a different road. But yeah, I think we were pretty lucky, really. We were pretty grounded.
I saw it as a period of intensified growth as well. Like you say, these moments on stage where you've got to sink or swim and the kind of obstacles, it really, yeah, it's that experience informed me so much just in terms of the personal growth. Because you're right, it's not really a normal way of life, and you're being thrown into all these intense and different experiences. So I can relate to that. The growth was kind of rapid for me too. But the fact that you came out of that unscathed.
Yeah, I know. I was very lucky, trust me. But yeah, I decided to leave. I was 32, and my father had just died, and I just felt like, I think music's for young people. You know, it wasn't like my chosen path. It was something I'd fallen
Mm.
into, which I think is a benefit for me, actually. Then I want to be on stage and having this big desire to be famous or something. You know, I was just doing it because it was just sort of accidental, and it was fun and I enjoyed it. And it was challenging, and I got to travel the world, and it was eye-opening, and you know, it took me out of my comfort zone. But I knew that I needed to do other things. So yeah, so I actually left the band, and he continued, and he got, you know, session people in and had other bands, and continued to write. But yeah, we split up then, and yeah, my life continued in a different path.
So, what led you to the spiritual awakening?
Right. So in 2014, I was married to my husband, and we were adopting two children. And so we'd gone through the 2-year process of adoption, and we'd been matched with these two beautiful children. And we were just about to adopt them and meet them the next day, because you're not allowed to meet them until you know, till it's sort of the day kind of thing, and till you go and see them for a week or two, and then they come to your house. And basically, my husband woke me up and told me he didn't want the children, and he said he didn't want me either. So it was a very sudden sort of trauma. And the grief of knowing that I wouldn't be bringing up these children, not being a mother, breaking up my you know, divorced my husband. It was a very shocking event. And looking back, I can see that, you know, it was the right thing to happen. But at the time, it really took me on a very deep journey of grief and pain and trauma. And, you know, he just woke me up and told me, so I wasn't fully awake at the time, wasn't fully conscious. And then he just left for work, basically. And yeah, he didn't honor me in needing to talk about it, and you know, and sort of ground me in the realization that 1 minute I'm sleeping and expecting to meet these children, the next minute there's nothing. So yeah, it was a real intense couple of weeks. And it was during that time that spirit or higher self or guides came in to support me, and also I had to support myself. And I was in a lot of physical pain at night. I was managing during the day. I was like project managing and making sure my family were okay and everything, you know, la la la. And then when it came to nighttime, I sort of went off into this other realm, and I felt like I was going to die, which I really wasn't worried about. But basically, I connected to spirits, and they told me lots of things, and I sang a lot of mantra, which really helped me stay in my body, because I didn't want to die. You know, I thought I was dying. I was having such palpitations and such physical reaction, which is shock, you know, and in the body. And I really wanted to stay. So I just sang mantra all night long. And that kept me in my body until I got up the next day and just did my daytime stuff. But eventually, this sort of connecting to spirit and living in these sort of two worlds became too much for my family, because obviously I wasn't being normal, but actually I was having a normal reaction to a very abnormal situation. And I ended up getting sectioned in a NHS psychiatric ward, and they injected me with drugs and made me take very strong antipsychotic drugs. And basically I thought, I shouldn't be here, you know, this isn't for me. So, but I wasn't allowed to leave. So I stopped taking the drugs, and I started acting, you know, it's like, no, I've never heard anything from spirit. No, no. And I basically, you know, got myself out of there after 2 weeks. They said, no, you've had acute stress because you lost the children, and I'm not suicidal and I'm not a danger to others. So I was allowed to leave. But the whole experience on top of what had already happened to me, and then feeling so much isolation and you know, shame from being locked up. And you know, after 2 weeks being locked up in a high-rise building in a small room, constantly wanting me to be drugged and me trying to get out of it and putting it in my mouth and taking it out and that kind of thing, you know, I was scared to be outside in the real world, because I was like, you know, I've just been programmed into 2 weeks of being locked in, and now I don't know how to, I'm scared, you know. And so, yeah, so from that, lots of things escalated in my life. And then I had to go through divorce. And obviously, I was having a lot of panic attacks and a lot of physical problems. And I didn't want to reach out to the medical profession because I didn't trust them. And so I went through this experience, you know, with the help of a few friends and family. But yeah, it was a very difficult experience to integrate, you know, and then to think, right, what can I do with my life? You know, I'm here, you know, I'm going to get better, you know, just some physical stress related issues. It's like, how can I get better? And what can I do? And, you know, so I did lots of things to work towards getting better. And I had this dream, as soon as I was well enough, I was going to leave the country and go traveling and see some beautiful things and create a new life for myself. So I was very lucky. You know, I managed to do that. And after, I think it was about 18 months after the divorce, selling houses and all that rubbish, I went traveling, and I met my sister in Nepal, and then we went traveling around India. And then eventually I ended up being in Bali, having no idea I was actually going to stay here. But I came here, and then everything kind of fell into place. You know, people say, oh, do you want to do some dog sitting? And I thought, oh yeah, it'd be nice to hang out with the dog and take it for a little walk. So I never had a dog. And I thought, oh yeah, I want to do that, and looking after people's cats. And I was just like, you know, just being very gentle with myself, and being in a new place, in a very sort of gentle place. You know, here it's very green and people are really lovely, and I met lovely people. And so gradually my life changed, and I started following my passions and started yeah, changing my life really.
Wow, that's epic. What a yeah, when the rug gets pulled out from beneath you, and it sounds like you suddenly became a sort of conduit for all these messages that were coming at you. So it was like a sounds like a kind of onslaught of the rug's been pulled out. You're getting all these new what a crazy and intense time. And yeah, life can do that. Just pull the rug out within one morning, as you say, when you're barely awake, and then your life just takes a completely different turn. Um, there's no question. There's no question there. I'm just kind of had the children come into play at that point, or you
Well,
hadn't
they
met?
knew that they were going to be adopted
Mm,
by us. Yeah, I'd made this beautiful book explaining this is mummy and daddy, and she was 3, so she had an awareness that they were coming to meet her, and I knew everything about them. I felt a very spiritual connection to her, particularly, and so yeah, I mean, they had been sort of trained to know what was going to happen, and she was very excited about her new parents that she was meeting. So I wasn't allowed to know anything about them, so. I just, the social worker, she basically told me delete everything, delete the information of the children, delete any pictures, delete. And so in the moment of her saying that to me, I was like, because I obviously wanted to adopt the children on my own if it was possible. And she goes, no, you won't be able to. You'll be in no fit state, she told me. And I was like, what do you mean I'll be in no fit state? 1 minute I'm approved adopter person, next minute, that's it. So when she said to me about deleting everything, I just sort of like, it felt like she sort of was saying, delete yourself, this person that I'd known for 14 months whilst we're going through the adoption process. And she was very angry. I mean, I can understand now looking back, of course, she was shocked too, but she didn't really have any consideration for what she was saying to me at such a fragile time for me. And so consequently, I couldn't speak to her again because I felt like she had attacked me. And actually, I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't been dishonest. I hadn't known, you know. She basically told me my husband was a fantasist. And I was like, oh, a fantasist? How does she know that? I mean, I had no idea. At this point, I had no idea who he was. I thought, my God, who is he? I mean, I thought we were happily married, I thought he wanted the children, and I thought we were going to have this amazing life. I knew it was going to be very challenging. Obviously having children is challenging, and having children that are adopted that have had, things happen to them that, potentially will come up later, not being their birth mother and all of that kind of stuff. So I'd read about 20 books about attachment and how to bring up an adopted child, and I'd done workshops. I had to go into a nursery and work with little children. They'd really put, and the amount of questions you have to answer about stuff is just, I mean, no normal person having a child would ever have to go through. And I can see that it's important because obviously they don't want to be giving children away to anyone. I understand that. But to then lose them was, well, I mean, it was just, my world crashed.
mm,
And but I was very lucky. I mean, the spirit that came through for me was like a Buddha. And so it was very much supporting me and wanting to guide me and wanting to give me some peace. And but I could also see through the veil, as they say. I could see, I could hear things, I could almost like know what other people were thinking. And I was never psychic or anything like that, but during that period of time I had a very acute sensitivity that I could sense a lot around me when I was with other people. And yeah, so it was a very eye-opening experience, and it was very confusing, but also it was very reassuring. And I was told, like, I think it was the second day, I was told there'll be a gift in this experience. And so I really held that, and I thought, well, this has got to be a bloody big gift because what I'm losing here and what I'm going through. That was before I got sectioned in the hospital, and I thought, wow, this is enough. And then obviously I got sectioned in the hospital, and then lots of other things that were also very challenging happened after that. But I mean, I see myself as very lucky. I only spent 2 weeks in there. I mean, I opted for the third week. It was suggested to me by my family and close friends to stay there an extra week to help me integrate to the outside world again. So I was allowed to go in and out of the ward and everything. But just being in there for 2 weeks, having to ask somebody to open a door, to go to the toilet, to open door, to please, can I, I mean, it was like I became a robot or a zombie. And in 2 weeks, with the amount of drugs that they give you, which gave me massive panic attacks. But also I was very lucky because my close family friend who took me into their home for a week, when it was all happening, they took me to Dorset and I stayed with them. He said to me, Alice, write everything down because that is your evidence and that will help save you. And I was like, oh, okay. Write about whatever's going on for you, whether it's divorce or practical things you need to do or whatever. So as soon as I got in there, I wrote about everything. I wrote myself through my panic attack when I wasn't supported. I wrote everything down. And that was my saving grace in a way, that I had this tool that I could use at any time. As long as I had a piece of paper and a pen, I could write. And that's what I did day and night, through panic attacks, through everything. I wrote and wrote. And I think that really, it gave me a space where I could express myself, because I wasn't allowed to express myself in there. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wasn't allowed to, I didn't feel safe in there. So I didn't feel I could cry, although I didn't feel like crying. I think I might have cried maybe once. But yeah, I didn't feel supported and they didn't give me any counseling. They just drugged me basically and then sort of threw me out. But I got to
It,
stay.
it's crazy that these messages you were getting felt, they felt safe to you. They didn't feel threatened amidst the chaos of it all. You felt like this is something that's trying to help me, and then immediately the hospital shut that down and denied that part of you. It's like, and denied that voice. But yeah, the writing thing is just amazing. I couldn't agree more. Like the fact that all you need is a pen and paper, and it's this tool that can just help you process everything in life. That's what's so cool about it. I know I draw on that, and I know I can rely on it no matter what. But perspective is always difficult when you're in the eye of the storm. So now it sounds like you see that all those things had to happen for a reason. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yes. I realized that was my path, and I think I got off quite lightly, to be honest, because I got myself out there pretty quickly. I mean, other things happened of the consequence of being in there, but the tool of writing, because when you write, it's the physical action of using a pen, with your hand connecting to the brain, and that was my life force, and that saved me. So I felt very grateful for my friend who suggested to do that. I mean, I'd always journaled a bit. I always did a bit of a diary, as you do, on and off. But this was a really powerful tool that, yeah, I suggest anyone, because when you write your truth in that moment, you know that that's your truth in that moment. No matter what anyone says, and really it's none of anyone's business about what you do write, but you write your truth. And in writing that truth, you acknowledge yourself. You acknowledge you as a soul, as a human being or whatever, and so by doing that, it saved me, really. Yeah.
And regardless of what you do with the writing, even if you throw it away, it still serves that
Absolutely.
purpose.
It's
Um,
that connection to self,
mm,
because what I realized through what I went through is, like, especially like afterwards, I felt very judged by having been sectioned and losing my children as well, which is obviously, it was a lot of grief to process. But, writing, I knew what my truth was. And, if people chose to judge me for what happened to me, or not want to talk to me about it, or not want to see, or wanted to see me differently, then I had no control over that. So that's why I started writing what happened to me, because I had to write it, because I couldn't believe it happened. And I thought, if I don't write my story, then I won't believe that happened, because it's just so far out, so far out. You're married, you're going to have some kids. I thought I'd won the lottery with these amazing children. I just felt like the luckiest person on earth, and going from that to going through into nothing and to nothing. I mean, going through the spiritual awakening, I went through the sort of dark night of the soul, and I became nothing. I can feel the feelings of being absolutely not in my physical body, not human, just invisible, just, like a grain of sand. And so that really taught me something. It was very humbling, and it was also very empowering. And yeah, I had a lot to process, and I learned a lot. And I thought, right, I've got to make myself a new life, and it's going to be a good one. I'm going to make it so. So
I,
my determination.
only when you have nothing do you have everything. I
Yes.
find, and it sounds like you say, once you started expressing your truth and your story, it kind of drew a line in the sand. So, and that was a positive thing. It was like, if people are going to judge me a certain way, well, so be it. But this draws a clear line in the sand, and then there's like a faith that the right things or people will sort of come into play, and it's almost like that line needs to be drawn there.
I was meant to experience it. And I think many people are going through this experience and have gone through that experience. And there's different ways of going through it. I mean, mine was a very sudden one. Other people go through it more gradually. And so if you have a sudden one, then it's really in the moment. I mean, I wouldn't have been a person that would have got locked up in a mental place. But because of my circumstances, I had to go to an extreme and experience something that luckily it was only for a couple of weeks. And I stopped taking the drugs after a week. He could see I was getting better because I wasn't taking the drugs. And not that they allowed me not to take them, of course. Um, but I took control, and I knew my truth. And that's why I wrote my story afterwards, because I've got to write it down, because I won't remember it. And it's just so bizarre. I don't think I'd even believe myself. So I wrote it in 2015. I just went to a cafe and it just came out. I just wrote it in the order. Yeah, it all happened. It's sort of, by offloading my experiences, was empowering for me. It was also quite shocking as well, but it empowered me. It's like, no, but that's my truth. Oh, okay. I mean, at that time, I didn't obviously want to publish. I was still going through the process. And it wasn't until 7 years later that I felt ready and brave enough to share with people that I'd been through a spiritual awakening, that I'd been locked up in, because people are very fearful about mental illness, and people, as myself, obviously, people that are unpredictable and maybe violent or whatever, or just unpredictable, can be very scary. And people, talking to Buddha or talking to spirit can be like, that person's not normal, but writing it down, I knew what happened to me, and I thought, okay, well, this is what happened. As messy as it seemed, that's what happened. And then obviously I came across other people whilst living in Bali that also had similar experiences. Their mother had been locked up, or their father, or this or that. And so I really felt I had to share my story, because I've just had a little glimmer of that experience. And I felt like my story is okay to be told, in a way, because I know a lot of people don't want to show themselves as they truly are, because it's ugly. It's not what we want to hear about, things like that. So I decided I needed to do it, not really because I wanted to write a book, because I never had any ambition to write or anything. I don't see myself as a writer, but I knew I had to tell the story, because I knew by telling the story, it would help other people, whether they're going through the divorce, whether they're in grief, they've lost their children, they're having a mental illness, or maybe their friend is, and maybe they can help them through reading the book. So my passion was like, right, I need to share this so I can help other people going through a similar experience, maybe not so drastic, but just having that story, I just felt like it could help other people, really.
So when you went through the formal process of writing it 7 years later, did it still come through you quite naturally, or was it did you wrestle with it a lot? And what was your process?
Well, I mean, I'd written the basis of what happened to me back in 2015. So I had that as a sort of template. Um, and then I kept on sort of dipping in and out of it. But every time I kept on going in, I just like, oh, I can't share this. And oh my God, it was bringing it all back to me. I was like processing it again. I was like, oh no, I'm too ashamed. I can't tell people that. People, oh no, I can't say. But then I thought, no, look, if you're doing it, you're just doing it in your truth. And so yeah, so I wrote it, and then it got to the point where I was like, right, I need some help here. So a friend of mine, I used to work in magazine publishing, and a friend of mine was an editor, and I actually had started editing people's memoirs, and she'd written a couple of books herself. So I contacted her and I said, would you read my book and edit it, because it needs an editor, because like she said to me, because I've been through much trauma, it's like you're repeating stuff, you know, you're just, because the trauma, I was like sort of stuck in this story and kept on repeating it because I was like, you know, it was so dramatic. So yeah, she edited it down a bit and changed it around a little. And yeah, I put it out last year. And many people have emailed me and said, or contacted me through Instagram and said, thank you for writing this book because it really helped me. Like I went through divorce, or I went through mental health, or my friend has, or something. So I know that I know it's helping people, and that was just my aim, really, to share that, because we're all the same, like you said. You know, we've all got our own unique path, but we're all the same essentially.
That's the ultimate reward, really, when people say it's helped them, whatever it may be. Did you self-publish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I decided I wanted to do that because I didn't want to go through a publisher that was then going to tell me how to write it and make it more eat, pray, love or something, and make it more, you know, palatable or whatever. I wanted to just say my truth. So I wanted it to be like pure as it could be, kind of thing. And coming from my point of view with my experience, because you know what it's like with the music industry and everything else, you know, they want to glamorize it or something. I don't want to glamorize mental illness. I don't want to glamorize spiritual awakening. And I just want to say it as it is from somebody that experienced something back in 2014.
Yeah, cool. No, I've talked about it a bit on the show, and I've been through self-publishing myself, and it's just, but I think when you have a sort of indie rock and roll background, the self-publishing thing, it's sort of the punk rock ethos as well. Like keep it in its purest form. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so cool that people have reached out to you uh, in that sense, and it's great that you recorded a free chapter there as well on Bandcamp,
Mm-hmm.
a little taster.
Yeah, yeah. I hope to record the whole book, but I just imagine it takes so many hours, and it's also another level of speaking it. You know,
Mm.
it's saying I sort of don't want to. Sometimes I look at the book and I go, I don't know, I don't want to. You know, it's like it feels like I know I have all these books here because I sell them in Bali. I sell them in about 15 shops here, and I know the content. I was it, you know, I was in it. And so yeah, I just see my life as obviously I want to inspire people that we can get through these things, and that connection is really key. Not just connection with yourself, which it could be through journaling or being creative in some way. Yeah, and using your creativity, because in creativity we forget everything else and we find gifts that we didn't even know we had. You know, by trying new things, you don't even have to be like, you know, like you're saying about bands, my song's got 3 chords, you know, I can play 3 chords. So it's like there are so many different ways of expressing yourself. Like to be a painter, you can just slap paint on a board. You don't have to, you know, be like a proper painter kind of thing. There's so many ways of expressing ourselves. And I think the key to life, because we're so busy doing proper jobs in the Western world, is like actually creativity is, you know, whether it's singing, playing an instrument, painting, doing anything, gardening, you know, being creative is so important.
Very cool that you said you have like a sort of balance of the two sides, because I think I'm sometimes more on the creative, but I'm actually learning to get more of that a balance between that business. So it's good that you've got a balance between both. Um, what does a day look like for you over there in Bali? Is there like non-negotiables for you, or are you pretty spontaneous day to day?
Do you know, I like to be spontaneous. I mean, I tend to get up early because we go to bed early here, we get up early, you know, sort of with the light. So I tend to get up around 6 or 5:36, and I tend to sort of go and look at the sun and have a coffee and look at all my jungle trees and just like come into the day in that way. Usually I have to feed my cat because she's meowing. These Balinese cats are very noisy. Um, and then, yeah, I might do just a couple of hours of online something or other, or do some social media and things like that that we have to do to promote our staff. Um, and I'm writing some journals at the moment. That's what I'm hoping, which I think will be, you know, maybe more palatable to some people than maybe reading the book. They might find it too intense or something. But it is just a story. I mean, it's happened to me. It's not going to happen to you. The chance of what happened in my book, you know, I think there's a very, very slight chance it could happen to other people. But spiritual awakening and mental health obviously happens to a lot of people, right? Um, yeah, and then I might do a bit of music. It depends, might meet friends. There's lots of things going on in Ubud. So at the moment, I'm really trying to stay home and work on these journals that I'm creating around my book and my experiences. And obviously, I do podcasts, so I'm busy doing interviews and taking interviews. And I've got a small jewelry range that I sell in Bali as well. And so I'm busy creating that and managing that. So there's a lots of things. I'm very sort of multi-dimensional in what I do.
It's ama-
So
it, it's amazing how we sort of end up becoming entrepreneurial once you take it into your own hands, especially in this day and age. It's pretty cool. Um,
yeah, I love
yeah,
doing lots of things. I used to get bored just doing one job, and it's just like, no, I like the freedom. I can design a bit of jewelry and put it out in different shops, and then I've got my book, which obviously restocking and things like that this time of the month. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing workshops when my journals are finished, and maybe some online courses to support people. And
I-
eventually, I plan to do retreats next year, or maybe by the end of this year, and
oh,
bringing people
awesome.
in that can, learn about storytelling. I mean, I think everyone has a story.
Mm,
Even just writing your own story, you don't have to publish it, but just writing about your experiences and what's happened to you, because every one of us has had different things that happened in our life, amazing things and some troubling things. And I think it's always really lovely, like say if you do have children, is writing a bit about your life story. So your children will have it in the
mm.
future. It's like, oh, what did daddy think when he was 18? Just like life experiences and how your children can learn from that as well. And also, there's lots of things in the past that maybe we don't like to talk about, but actually they're the things that can really help our children for the future.
It's also, the different stages of life too can offer different
Yeah.
things. I used to have a big pile of stuff, and then I realized that I was like trying to cram everything into one big pile, but there's actually very unique different stages that can be expressed in different ways. And what you said earlier about people potentially reading it, I sort of had to learn that to have a faith that people are perhaps more equipped to deal with stuff, because I used to be like, oh, I can't burden anybody with that or whatever. But I did learn over time that people are actually equipped, without like unloading too much or whatever. Like it's a fine line, but people can often handle. And as you said, it's just amazing when you share this stuff, that people share their own experiences in so many
Yeah.
different ways.
And we find out that we're all the same. We all go
Mm,
through difficult times, and knowing how other people got through them. I mean, I didn't even know about spiritual awakening. I didn't have any idea about it. And I really had to try and research myself, like what happens to people? What should I do? What really, because I had to stop it very quickly. I had to turn it off, get locked up and be drugged. And so, but then I had to look back and say, well, but I was channeling that information. I did know that, and that was true. So, but I didn't want to look because I thought, oh, people will think, she's crazy or something, now she's turned into a hippie or something. But yeah, you need to look back and see and then unravel, the information slowly. And obviously, it has taken some time because you need to sort out your life and you need to feel safety. I mean, that's a very key thing. And but something I listened to recently, they said if your friend is going through a difficult time, only takes 8 minutes just to connect with them, just to hear them, just to be acknowledged. You don't have to like tell them everything, but just hearing someone's voice who's a friend and just having a little chat, that in itself can actually ping somebody back. And I know I always say to my friends, I always say, ask for help, call me up anytime. If you just want to chat about it, because chances are I might be feeling like that too. And if I'm not, it doesn't matter. But, it's just like we all really need to look about how we can support people in small ways. It's like when you see somebody in the street and giving them a smile, they might all have a little chat. I mean, they might not have spoken to anyone for a few days. You don't know. So this connection, this acknowledging other people and being seen and heard is really crucial. It's taking that time to listen and to be present.
and we live in a fairly disconnected society at the moment. So you're right in that it doesn't need to be like a 2 hour session just to check in with someone, can be
Yeah,
enough. So
yeah,
yeah, it's like a muscle.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a tradition on the show to have guests offer some kind of challenge to listeners.
Okay.
This could be anything based on our discussion or based on your journey. It's mainly just things that can change. You know, it's been the small things that have a big impact on our daily lives. Is there anything that you've tried or tested, or for someone that may be struggling, or even in regard to writing or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, a few things come to mind.
Oh, the more the
Um,
better.
yeah, I would say connect to nature. Have a few moments every day. If you don't have nature in your garden and you're in a big city, you know, it could be a plant, or it could be the sky, it could be the sun if you're lucky enough to have the sun shining. But connect to nature, connect to the elements, you know, a tree, whether it's observing it, just connect to an element of nature or water, or go for a walk, you know, just a 15-minute walk in nature can really help ground you and balance you and just bring you into yourself. Um, I'd also recommend journaling, obviously. Just writing, you know, have a little journal just to write stuff. It doesn't have to be every day, but, you know, sometimes we feel emotional, but we can't express it. So it's like asking yourself, really, how do I feel? And what do I need? You know, those two questions you can ask yourself. And it's sometimes like, maybe I just need a coffee with a friend. I just need to feel a bit of connection. Because often it's about we need to feel connected. And especially if we live alone, or even if you don't, you know, taking that time out with your partner or your child, and spending that, you know, a 15-minute walk, you know, just together. But yeah, it's about connection. Everything's about connection. And you know, being grateful for a couple of things every day. I mean, just the fact we wake up alive, that's almost like magic, isn't it? um, After we've been sleeping, hopefully sleeping, you know, well. Yeah, just the simple things really. And thinking about other people and maybe just sending them some love, or writing them a message, you know, thinking about who do I need to connect to, who maybe might just need a little hello today, how are you? You know, because when people think about us, you know, even just energetically, they receive it, I believe, because we're
Mm.
all interconnected in this energy field that we live in. So sending a bit of love to people, and, you know, it's like just in the street, give them a smile, say hello. I mean, I know in Australia everyone's very friendly and people do say hello a lot. I mean, in England we're a bit more reserved and we're a bit more sort of head down on the tube and no one talks to each other. But yeah, just giving that smile can change someone's day, and just being kind to people, and just taking your time to breathe and not be rushing around like a lunatic. Just like, you know, just like breathe for a moment, stop, take a few deep breaths into your belly, and ask yourself how you feel and what you need, and
That
ask
thing
for it.
that thing about where you haven't thought of someone for a while and then they message is real.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Exactly.
it's
And so, and you
uncanny.
can just, yeah, just send love out to people. You know, hadn't thought about them for a while. Send them some love. See, do some tricks on yourself. See if they come back. Or if they don't, maybe they need a call, you know. But if we keep on reminding people, you know, our friends and our family, that we're here for them, then they'll feel less alone, knowing that you keep saying it. Because I keep saying to my friends, they still don't ask for help. And I said, why do you ask for help? I told you. They go, oh, I know, but I didn't want to because I'm feeling really ill. I said, well, that's the time you need help. That's the time you need connection. You need to know that you're not alone. And if you need a hug or something, you know, if you need some groceries brought in, or you just need to have a little chat, you know, it's really important, because then you can capture it, and then they feel better because they've offloaded how they felt, or they've offloaded, just said, oh God, I feel so ill. And it's like, okay, maybe you need a massage, maybe you need this, maybe we can help you with something. Just knowing that somebody cares about you, they feel less isolated, and they feel, so you're reconnecting them. And it doesn't matter if they're not well or whatever, but, you know, you're reconnecting, saying, I care about you. And I think in these days of real, like, world global transformation that we're going through, and mental health and illnesses and all sorts, it's like knowing that people care about you, I think, can change how they feel.
For sure. Have you seen a film or series that's left an impact, or even another book in your life that's had a major impact on you?
Well, many books, really. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, I love all those Paulo Coelho books. Um, they could take you on an adventure, and they make you think differently. And I always thought, oh, if I could really write, I'd like to write something like that, because they usually have some real surprises in there. And I always feel like actually he's part of the story, although he never says he actually isn't. I feel like he's disguised, you know. I mean, I wanted my book to be fiction, but I was told, no, Alice, people will get it if you're being authentic and you just be you, they will get it, you know, they will resonate with it better. But yeah, sort of magical realism. Because I think like having a little dream every day, taking a bit of time out to like imagine how you'd really like your life to be, you know, because if we start with our imagination and we say, oh my God, I'd like this, I'd like to get that, this could happen. And then, you know, you might be surprised. It might actually end up happening. I mean, I had that dream. I want to live abroad. I want to live in a beautiful place. I want to be able to travel. And it ended up happening, you know.
Mm.
So we
No,
all live
there's
with the unknown. But if we actually try and think, what would my unknown like? How would I like it to be? You know, if I could have anything, what would I dream of doing? And where would I be? What would I be doing? Who would I be with? You know, and just like getting into that imagination a bit, because life can be hard in the real, you know, real or fake world, whatever you want to call it. You know, so it's just like taking those times to dream, because I think your body doesn't really know, and your mind doesn't know what is truth and what is, you know, reality. So having those dreams and always holding on to those dreams, we can always change. We can always learn something new. I mean, I've learned so many new things in the last couple of years. It's like we actually always can. It's just taking that little bit of time, like 10 minutes a day, to learn a few guitar chords, or writing a song, or doing anything creative. You know, I think creativity is the key to our self-expression, our connection to our, you know, our inner selves, our soul. And when we express that, we only going to feel good. It's not about, oh, I can't paint. I mean, I always said I can't write, but you know, I felt, well, I've got a story, something's in there, you know. So it's just like just trying to having a go at stuff, and maybe lots of things, and maybe it might take a while to find out what you really like doing, but it doesn't, you don't have to be good at it. That's what I want to say. Like when I was at school, it's like you had to be good at that. It's like I never was really good at anything. I was like mediocre or whatever. But you know, it's just like when you just allow yourself the freedom to explore, you'll be surprised what you can find, and what you like doing, you know. So you could journal about that. You know, you could journal what your dream life would be. Why not? It's free.
sure, and there's huge power in the imagination, as you say.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I've thrown down on so many different things. It's like, but they've all informed each other, you know. And
actually, it's all
there's
connection.
yeah, and there's always growth in there's always lessons. So
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
awesome. Where could people find you in the book?
Travelwithalice.com is my website. And I have a couple of Instagram accounts, like travel with _ Alice and I am Alice book. So yeah, you can listen to the free first chapter. And I have the ebook on my website, but you can also buy from Amazon for the sort of paperback. Yeah, so that's where I am. And the jewelry's on my site. Everything's on my site, my podcast. If people want to listen to that, it's I Am Alice podcast on YouTube, where I talk to people about connection, creativity, and finding clarity in our ever-changing world. So that's what interests me. So I talk to people about all different subjects that, yeah, and people that I've met here, or people from around the world that I've met, that, yeah, we just talk openly and honestly and authentically about life and our experiences, really, and how we can help other people.
You know, I really appreciate your honesty, because the way you described your story, you know, it was relatively, not call it easy, but it was relatively straightforward for you to explain that. And that's not an easy thing at all, to get to that, to get to that place where you can communicate that. Um, you know, you made it seem easy, but I know how hard that is to just speak your truth like that. So all credit to you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
no,
it's taken 2 years.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
I've
it's
come to acceptance now, and I know by sharing, I'm helping other people. And I just really want to tell people, no matter how tough it gets, you know, you are a unique human being that, you know, deserves to live and have a wonderful life. And you know, I want everyone to have an amazing life, and I don't want people's mental health problems or spiritual awakenings or whatever, you know, car crashes or whatever people have, that, you know, they go through a lot of grief. And you know, I know grief is a really difficult experience, no matter how old you are, or whoever it is, or whether they've even died or not. You know, like in my circumstance, you know, I'd lost 3 people in my life that weren't even dead. You know, they were still alive, but I had lost them. So it's the same process. It's like when you break up in a relationship or a marriage, it's a grieving process because you've lost something that you thought you were going to have for maybe ever, or at least a long time, or unexpectedly things change. So grief is a huge, you know, it's a huge experience. And, you know, I've navigated it in different ways during my life experiences. And I must say, losing, you know, the children was obviously the hardest one for me. So yeah, it's like really honoring how we feel and getting into connection with ourselves at how we feel, because often we don't take time to really get in touch with our emotions. We don't know because we're so busy doing our jobs and blah blah blah. We don't actually really connect with our emotions, and they get left behind and squashed. And then something big happens because we're not in contact with our emotions. So that's why journaling I would really recommend, because it's just a way of just daily offloading, you know, how you feel, or imagining, or anything. But it connects the brain, it connects you to your heart, it connects you to your soul, and it's your personal expression. There's no wrong or right. It doesn't matter if you can't even read it afterwards. It really doesn't matter. You know, you can scribble on a page. I sometimes do if needs be, you know, if I'm, you know, I mean, it's just like really, it's like allowing yourself to express. Because when we don't express, that's when we get disease. That's when we get heart problems, because we're stuffed up with emotions that we can't express to anyone, and we feel alone. And then that just becomes addiction. It just becomes, you know, it messes up our lives and we feel out of control. So I think it's really important, if we're in touch with our emotions on a daily basis, can just tap in. The more we do these things, the more we get the power from it, and we recognize our true self. And then we don't have to be fake with all our friends and, oh, I'm okay, yeah, everything's great, oh, la la la, jobs, you know. It's like, no, we can actually be our true selves, because that's the best self, you know. And it gives you freedom, because now it's like, yeah, that's my life. It's like walking down the street naked. If you know, it's like, yeah, that's what happened, but it's not me now. That's my past life, you know. Yes, it did happen, and now I'm me, and that's not me now, you know. That's just something that happened to me that I've shared. But you know, my new life is completely different and completely unexpected. But you know, I've worked at that, and yeah, and I've been very lucky, and I've found the right people to support me, and you know, life is all about lessons, isn't it? It's like the school of life. We're always learning something. We never know what's going to happen in the future, and so we're learning day by day in how we treat ourselves, how we treat others. And you know, it's just it's school of life.
Very liberating to just kind of call it how it is, as opposed to put on that kind of everything's okay act, because we're all struggling with different things at different times. And like you say, I was going through getting sort of bouts of anger recently, and just by taking walks in nature, I wasn't denying the anger. You know, I think it's healthy. I think bitterness
Yeah.
is not healthy, because if it's squashed, but you know, the anger was coming through, so I was just taking walks and kind of allowing that to come up. That was kind of a big step for me, you know. But it's
Punching a pillow, anything, screaming, you know, the voice is so powerful to connect with. You know, you can sing a song, you can sing a punk song or whatever, turn some music up and shout along with it. You know, the voices are very powerful. And often we don't speak up about how we feel. Like you say, we just say, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm good. And really, you know, you're inside, you're so unhappy. So whatever emotion, whether it's grief, joy, anger, everything should be acceptable. You know, obviously you're not hurting other people. And you know, like people say, scream in your car when no one is driving along. Okay, but drive carefully. But you know, it's like we do need to express ourselves. You know, our voice is so important, and also singing, you know, and sound, as I was saying, you know, it actually vibrates through the whole of our body. It's actually waking up all the cells in our body, and you know, it's making us become more alive. And there's lots of like frequency music you can listen to, and you know, music is a, you know, put your headphones on, go for a walk, go for a run. I mean, the movement of walking is obviously very good for the left and right brain, bring yourself back into balance. But there's so much beauty out there. You know, sometimes we just get used to it. You know, I look out here every morning, I go, wow, pink leaves and frangipani falling everywhere. And I'm always like, oh God, it's so beautiful. I look at the rice paddies and I go, wow. I mean, green is a very powerful color to bring you back into balance. Very most healing color, the color green. So we have a lot of green here. I know they're building quite a lot, but we still have a lot of green. And yeah, nature, nature and trees, so much wisdom in that. Yeah. And connecting to nature is definitely, and the sea, if you're nearby the sea, listening to the waves. I mean, we're 70% water. So, listening to the waves, listening to music, it's all vibrating within us, and we want to feel alive. We're here or alive. We want to feel it, don't we? We don't want to just be like, oh, I'll just be a bit gray and a bit, we want to feel like we're living,
All the colors and shapes and sounds on offer.
Yeah.
Now, awesome. Well, it's exciting the life you've created for yourself over there, and yeah, excited to see what you continue to do. And yeah, I really appreciate your time and your insights.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have a guest suggestion, please reach out on my website at danthomas.net. I'm also on social media at Mr. Dan Thomas. Catch you on the next episode.